Welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at the date and time fields within the BigQuery export. So that is specifically the event date and event timestamp fields. Although there are other timestamp fields within the export, we're just going to be focusing on those two today. We'll have a look at how the data is stored and then show you some tips and tricks for how to work with those values to achieve the output that you need. So every event that is exported into BigQuery will include both the event date and event timestamp. These are two of the most important fields within the export. Important to note is that the event date will be synchronized to the time zone that you've configured within your GA4 property. So if you've set that to be London time, then all of the dates will be corresponding to London time within your export. However, the event timestamp is a UTC field. So that's an important distinction to be aware of early on. If you want to compare data against the UI, then you need to make sure you're looking at the right days. And similarly, if you want to convert your data into different time zones, you need to be using the event timestamp field to do so. We can see here in the table schema that the event date is stored as a string and the event timestamp is stored as an integer. So neither of them are actually stored as a date type within the database. So generally, you're going to want to perform some kind of transformation on them as you are building out your query. If we preview the data now, we can see that the event date is stored in a reasonably readable format, whereas the event timestamp is just a string of numbers. So that isn't really very useful to us. We will definitely have to be performing some transformation on it to understand what it is. So let's focus first of all on the event date. I've included the original field here in the select statement, and then underneath that I'm going to parse that value into a proper date format. If we run that now, we can see how that looks. You can now see this value is easier to read than the original. And more important than that, if you were to download this data and open it up in Excel, for example, Excel would recognize this value as a date, whereas it wouldn't for this format. So you can see it's very easy to convert the date. We're just using the parse date command, and we pass in a string which represents the format of how the data is stored and the field where it is stored, and it will just convert that into the standard date format for us. Another thing you might want to do is to extract parts of the date. So here we're going to extract just the year. To do that, we're going to use format date. We pass in the string which represents the format that we want to output, and then we pass in the date value. So here you can see we have to convert that original event date into a date to then pass it into this format date. And you can see now it's extracted just the year part for us. And I'm doing the same here for the month and the day as well. So you can see the only difference here is we're specifying a different output. So here it's %M, %A for month and day. And that now extracts the month and the day. There are loads of other outputs you can get from the format date function. Some of them are listed out here, and there is also a full list here. Just click on the link on our Working with Dates and Times page on the website. So let's have a look now at the event timestamp. As we saw earlier, that is stored as a long number within the database. So in order to make that readable and to understand what it is, we can use the timestamp micros function. And we just need to pass in that event timestamp field. And we can now see that that big long number has been converted into a date time value. So we have the date here at the beginning and then the time. And as it shows here, that's in UTC. The date time value down the bottom here isn't the most readable or user-friendly, perhaps. So you can also format that into just a single time value if you wanted. To do that, we can use this section of the query here. And all this is essentially doing is it's extracting the hour, the minute, and the second, formatting those, and then concatenating the values together. So you can see here it's extracting the hour from the timestamp micros event timestamp. So that's the same function that we used up here. We pass that in, we extract the hour from it, and we format it a certain way. Exact same underneath, except we're just extracting the minute, and then under that we're extracting the second. And then we're concatenating all those three values together and inserting a colon in between the hour and the minute and the minute and the second. And now we have a single time displayed in a more readable format down below. And the last thing I'll show you now is how to convert that event timestamp into different time zones. So as we saw earlier, the value is stored in UTC time zone. We can use the time function to convert that into whatever time zone we want. So you can see we're passing into the time function the converted event timestamp value, and then after that we specify the time zone that we want to convert it to. So I've just included a few different ones here so you can see how the output differs. And at the bottom now we can see the output. So we have London time, which is the same as the UTC time. We have the time in New York, Los Angeles, Tokyo, and Sydney. So you can see there's quite a lot you can do with those two fields, the event date and the event timestamp. You will generally want to perform some kind of transformation on them, but doing so is relatively simple once you know the different functions to use. Come back for the next tutorial. It's the last in the series, and we're going to be bringing together everything we've learned so far in order to create some metrics and reports within BigQuery. See you then.